Hello, my name is Chad Lucas, Senior Systems Engineer at VMware, and today we're going to go through and show how to deploy the LogInsight virtual appliance, do the initial configuration, add in the ESX host, add an additional Red Hat Linux host to LogInsight. Then we will integrate LogInsight with vCenter operations as well. Then we will configure a managed alert, and then after that we will create a custom dashboard inside of vCOPS to consume those managed alerts. So we'll begin just by logging into vCenter. And let's go through the motions here to deploy the OVF template. I previously downloaded the virtual appliance, so you'll obviously have to do that first. And the current version as of this demo, which here you make sure you select the OVA to have the right filter, is the 1.04 version. I'll just select that. EULA as is, accept the EULA. Give it the target and name. In this section here, we will choose the appropriate network, leave it as static manual, click next. And this is where we will enter the networking properties. So I'm sure these will be different for you. Default gateway, DNS. And this part here, I would recommend using the fully qualified name. And just as an extra step in preparation, I went ahead and added the LogInsight as a DNS entry. So I would recommend doing that as well if you have DNS set up in your environment. And then we're going to power this on after deployment. Click Finish. So this will take a few minutes to complete, and then once it's completed, it will actually go through a boot process, taking the input that we did for the virtual appliance deployment, and then once it applies those settings, it'll actually reboot the virtual appliance and it'll be ready. So it'll take a few minutes. So the virtual appliance is deployed. It's in its initial boot stage here, so we'll go ahead and pop out the console just to take a look at it. Nothing spectacular here, it's just going through the initial configuration, so we will let it do its thing here and it'll reboot, and then we can start working with the appliance. So the appliance has finished booting, and the next thing we're going to do is actually log in and update the root password. So by default, the root password is blank. So basically just hit enter twice and then enter the new password. It's got to meet the minimum security requirements. And I'm actually going to update it again. Okay, so now that the password's been changed, basically I just changed it again because once you log in as root, you can actually bypass the minimum security requirements. And I'm just making the password match a lot of my other stuff in my lab. So now let's actually log into the LogInsight server and do the initial configuration here. So this is the initial password drill configure. This is not the same as the root password we just updated on the command line. And enter your serial key. You can enter multiple email addresses here, comma separated. I'm going to forego the weekly trace data. I'm going to leave this as is. I'm going to skip the test. I've had issues in the past where the test doesn't work. I'm not sure why, but the NTP service actually does work after the appliance is restarted. So we'll just click Save and Continue. I'm going to leave this as is. This is where we configure our vCenter server. We'll test it. And we also will enable the vCenter Operations Manager plugin. We're going to test. And I'm also going to enable this launching context. Enabling this launching context allows you to launch into LogInsight directly from vCOPS for more detailed information about specific queries or managed alarms that you configure. So we'll click this now. And this can take a few minutes to complete. So registration is successful. We'll click on Save and Continue. Going to skip, not going to enable that. And now it just has to restart. So I'll give this a few minutes here. So the restart is successful, and we can go ahead and log into the appliance. So the next thing we're going to actually configure before we really start to utilize LogInsight is add both of my ESX hosts in this, and it's actually done via command line from the appliance itself using a configuration script that's included with LogInsight. And I'm going to open a new session here. And this is simply done by running the configure-esxi script that's included with the appliance. And then the UDP address of your LogInsight server and the port. So you'll see that it says no changes needed because I've previously added these guys before, but in a new install that would not be the case. Nevertheless, the next thing is we have to actually restart the syslog service, and you can do that from this script as well. Okay, changes were successful. Now we will add in one of my Linux servers. So my specific version is a Red Hat version, actually version 6.2. And the version of syslog on this is rsyslog, so we'll edit that comp file. Go all the way in, and I've got it in here already, but it's commented out. But essentially, you would just add a line similar to what I've added here. The DNS name of your LogInsight server and the port. You can, depending on what your level of logging you want to send a LogInsight, you can specify that independently by, just emergency messages or what have you. I'm just going to default to everything. So anything that it logs, I want it to send a LogInsight. So we'll save that, and then we have to restart the service. And let's generate some security logs here. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's go back to LogInsight server. Click on Interactive Analytics. So when we go to Interactive Analytics, there's obviously the search bar here. And you can see there's a bunch of information that's already in here just as a default. But if we want to narrow down to get maybe more specific information about a host server, we can start typing like the DNS name of my Red Hat NFS server. And just by typing in RH, it's pulled up a couple things here. And I'll just click on the relevant NFS server and click search. And you can see that there are a few messages in here actually around root login. And what I'm going to actually do is create a managed alert based upon this root login. And the way I'm going to do that, so I don't make it specific to a host, but I want to look at all root logins, is I'll just copy this text here. Click on search. And to generate more traffic, I have simply just SU to root again. And when we go back and redo the search, you'll see that it has pulled up my next attempt, or actually successful attempt, of logging in as root on the RHEL NFS server. The same will happen for the ESX host. So we'll try this. If we go back, rerun the search, you'll notice that it has now sent the root login from the ESX host to there as well. So what I really want to do now is create a managed alert so that in a situation if you wanted to monitor root logins via vCOPS, you would first create a managed alert inside of LogInsight. You can do that just by clicking on this, add an alert. I'm going to call this alert root login. You can have it send an email. And the next thing is actually to send it to vCenter operations. And we have to select the resource. And the resource kind I'm going to select for this alert is actually going to be the LogInsight resource itself. And you'll see why when I actually go in and can create a custom dashboard, as I will select that as the resource to capture this alert. So we can kind of narrow the results here. And I'm going to select LogInsight server. Let's keep it on any match and then click save. So the next step would be to actually log into VC Operations Manager, and I'm going to, let's go ahead and log out. We're going to log into the vCOPS-custom interface. And we're going to create a new dashboard. Click on the plus sign there. This dashboard is actually going to be an alerts dashboard. So I'm going to drag this over. I'm going to make it one column. Let's give it a name. And then click OK. So by default, this dashboard already has some parameters configured, but we're going to change those by simply clicking this Edit Widget button. And I'm going to turn the refresh on and set it to 10 seconds. And then I'm going to clear all the current filters. And then I'm going to go down to Resource Kinds. And this is where I'm going to select the LogInsight server that you see here. And then I'm going to change the alert type to Classic Alert and just on notification. Select. And make sure it's active. Select. And the rest of these can be unchanged. Click OK. And after a few minutes, this widget will refresh, and about every 5 minutes, the LogInsight server will send updates to vCenter operations. So within a few minutes here, this will populate with an alert, and we can dive into that. So we've waited a few minutes, and you'll see that now an alert has popped up in here. So if we double click on this alert, it'll just say it's found 3 messages matching the criteria for root login, and we can actually, remember when we enabled the launching context, directly from this alert we can launch right into the vCenter LogInsight server. And it'll take us directly to the alerts that were part of that notification. In this situation, we can see here what system I was on, 02, 01, and the RHEL NFS server that I logged into, and then who was the user, in this case C. Lucas, and then this was a default root login. So in recap, we deployed the Log Center Insight server. The vCenter LogInsight server. We configured it, added a managed alert, and then created a dashboard inside of vCenter operations called root login, and it's now capturing this information. And keep in mind that when you configure this or you do a similar type of alert, once you trigger something or make an action that should be captured in LogInsight, LogInsight only sends this information to vCOPS about every 5 minutes. So if it doesn't show up immediately, don't be concerned. Wait 5 to 7 minutes after you create your action and see if this populates. If it doesn't populate, then odds are you need to configure something on the widget here to capture that data from vCenter operations. And that concludes this demo. Thanks and have a good day.